Hey everyone, it's Lambomang here. Welcome back to Pavlov VR. Now today, this is a video I'm going to do. It's going to have a bunch of tips and tricks on how to get better at the game. So this is a very beginner level video because it's always great to start with the basics. You never know what you'll learn by just starting from the very beginning and going through. So before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and start up a map. Now, I'll just show you the map we're going to be going to. So, there is a map that is called, where is it? Practice Range. I'll leave a link to it down below in the description. However, this map is, it's basically, it's a map full of different targets, different target practice exercises you can do. And it's really good for getting a hang of how to play this game. However, you don't want to play it offline, you want to play it online. So playing offline, you've only got a limited amount of settings you can change. Basically, you can't change how long the match goes for. So what you're going to want to do instead is that you want to go play online, choose whichever region you're in, create a lobby. You want to create a pin, let's just go, it doesn't really have to be anything you remember because you're going to be the only person in the lobby. It's just there to stop other people from joining. You want to select your map. Switch it to deathmatch, random team's fine. Then you'll want to go into settings and change the match length to 45 minutes. That's as long as you can make it go. So that's a really good option to set it to. You don't want bots or competitive, don't want a weapon filter, leave all those options the same. And then just hit start. So here we are in the practice range. I'm just going to get rid of that pistol. Let's grab something. Buy menu, rifles. Go with the good old M4. Okay, so, as you can see, there are a bunch of target practice exercises all over the place. You got a shooting gallery over here full of watermelons and pots and cans. Got a bunch of static targets. Got a bunch of moving targets. Got a bunch of pots over there. More pots over there for grenades. And you've got this big thing here. Now that's a big old death marker. So if I walk into this, it'll kill me. The reason why is because the buy menu only appears for a short amount of time after you respawn. So if you ever want to switch weapons, switch up what you're practicing with, you run into that and you do this. So I'm going to go through this map with the M4 today, and I'll show you a bunch of tips and tricks that I've learned on how to improve your accuracy, how to aim better in Pavlov. And the first really big one is that you're going to want to go to your options, go to player, and turn on use virtual stock. Now, what this is going to do is that when you grab a gun, you got it with your primary hand, grab it with your secondary hand, and basically it aims wherever you point your hands. What the virtual stock does is that it really smooths out holding your hands like in a line from shoulder to primary hand to secondary hand. Because obviously your hands aren't connected, so they aren't as stable as they would be if you were using a stock. So your hands are sort of like floating around like kind of like this, which makes it hard to aim, especially for longer distances. What the virtual stock does is that it sort of averages out the directions between your hand and underneath your neck, and from this hand to that hand. So if I bring up the Steam VR menu, which will allow me to see, you should be able to see the player models, like the actual gun, just faintly, and also the controller itself. So as you can see, it's moving towards where I'm pointing my my front controller. However, if I do something crazy like this, as you can see, my left hand is not actually where my left controller is. It's sort of smoothing it out. So you've still got a decent amount of control for like your small adjustments here, but it does remove a lot of the motion so that your gun is, on a whole, a lot more steady. So I would definitely recommend turning that option on. It's going to make your life a whole lot easier when it comes to trying to aim in Pavlov. Alright, so we're going to start with the very basics on how to use your gun efficiently. So, we'll just go over we'll start with reloading actually, because there are two main ways of reloading in this game, and it changes depending on what gun you're using. So with the M4, I'm just going to go ahead and completely empty it out. Now to reload this one, what you're going to want to do is you want to press the eject magazine button, and then slide another magazine on in. Close the bolt, and you're good to go. Most guns work like this. You'll press the eject magazine button, put another one in, do the bolt, and then you just start shooting again. However, not every gun works like that. There are a few guns, such as the AK-47, the P90, and there's another one whose name that I forget right now. But the way that these ones work is that you want to go ahead and empty it out. This time, if you press the eject magazine button, nothing actually happens. Because what you got to do here is you got to reach up, grab at the trigger, throw it away, grab a new one. You still need to do that, and then you're good to go again. So you're going to want to get to know the weapon that you're using, just so you know which ones are eject magazine button based and which ones are actually physically grabbing based. Because it happens to me every now and then. I'll play with the AK for a while, I'll switch to the M4, I'll go to reload, and I'll try to actually grab the magazine off, which I can't do on the M4. So if you can get the hang of reloading really quickly, you're good to go. One other thing to note is that with most guns in this, if you don't completely empty out the magazine, you can just take it out, toss it in, and start firing again. You don't have to worry about the bolt because there's already a bullet chambered. So sometimes it's a lot faster to not actually completely empty out your gun. Now you have pretty much unlimited ammo in this game, so you can, like, you know, get as many magazines as you want. It doesn't really matter. You're not going to run out. In other games, such as Contractors, you do have a limited amount of ammo, so it kind of does matter. You got to do your bullet management a little bit better. Pavlov, it really doesn't matter. Just go ham. Spawn as many of these as you want. Break the game if possible. One other note on reloading, with guns such as the M4, there is one other little tip which is going to make reloading a whole lot quicker. So if I go ahead and empty this out again. Alright, and this time what I'm going to do is I'll eject the magazine, put a new one in, but instead of, like, physically moving the bolt to chamber around, I can press, there is a bolt release or a bolt close button on the Vive. I'm not sure what it is on the Rift, but on the Vive it is the top of your touchpad on your right hand. And so I can just press that, and there, I'm good to go. I can just start shooting again. So I can just go magazine eject, new magazine, click the button, and continue shooting. So there you go. That's a whole lot faster for reloading. So that's a good place to start. Learn how your gun reloads, and then just practice, like, reloading as quickly as possible. Now that button to release the bolt doesn't work on every single gun. It doesn't work on the AK. I don't actually have a list of what guns it does and doesn't work on though, so you'll have to try that out for yourself. Grab a gun, empty it out, and see how it goes. And then just basically try to remember how each gun reloads. So that's reloading. Let's get on to the actual aiming. So in this map we have quite a few different areas and exercises to practice on. And I'm going to start with the target practice. So with this, you got a bunch of bodies with, like, targets on them, etc. To start off with, I would only bother with the ones on the floor in the first level. The ones at the back are what you would use if you're starting to learn, like, sniper rifles or weapons with scopes. And basically the key to this game is learning how to use the iron sights, which is it's very different. Because if you come from, like, you know, a PC FPS or even an Xbox or PlayStation FPS, your crosshair is always in the very center of the screen. You don't have to worry about lining your crosshair up before you actually try to line it up with the thing you're trying to shoot. However, in this, your crosshair, or your iron sights in this case, is made up of two parts, which is the front part here, front part. Well, I guess technically this is the back part and the front part, because this is the front of the gun. And you want to line them up. It's not the easiest thing to do, especially with smaller guns and the resolution of your VR headset. It can be a bit tricky. Like, if I just go ahead and pick up my pistol, you can barely see the iron sights, so it does take a bit of getting used to. Again, having the virtual stock on will make it a whole lot easier. And then just try to keep that as centered as possible. As lined up as possible. Maybe start moving from side to side. Just try to keep it lined up. It's a lot easier if you close one eye. Only use say you're holding it in the right hand, just use your right eye. And once you're starting to get the hang of that, you can start taking shots. Now I've switched my M4 to single fire instead of fully auto, because it's going to make it a lot easier for practicing. And then just try to line up with the center of the body and shoot. You could try going straight for the headshots, but it's better to start off going for the body because it's a bigger target, so if you miss, you can see just how far you're off. Like that shot there, it was a bit off to the left. Had I tried to do that on the heads, it wouldn't have hit anything, so I wouldn't have been able to see how badly I missed. So it'll take a little bit, but these targets will refresh. If you load them with enough bullets, they will essentially fall apart. Because they are full-on physics actors. So you just gotta wait a little bit for them to respawn. So that's a good place to start. Line up your iron sights. Try to get as close to the target, close to the middle of the target as possible. So once you've gotten better at that, you can start going for the headshots. Just try to keep your hands as steady as possible. And if you're trying to aim from side to side, move your whole body. Move your head, move your shoulders, move your arms. Try to do that all in sync. It'll make it a whole lot easier. Because you want to keep those iron sights lined up as much as possible. That's really the tricky part of this game. So I always like to start off by doing that for a little bit. Once I've done there, I'll usually head over to headshot practice over here. So, what we have here is we have a bunch of pots on top of poles. Now the pots are destructible, but the poles aren't. So basically they're at a bunch of different head heights because in this game your player model is synced up to your actual player height. So that means that for someone like me, I'm about 6 foot, I'll appear at about 6 foot in the game. People who are taller than me will be taller than me in the game as well. People who are shorter, etc. So in a normal game, like in a normal PC or console FPS, you can generally hold your mouse or your crosshair at one level and you'll be able to get headshots a lot easier. Not so in Pavlov. You actually have to adjust up and down based on the player's heights. So this area has got an exercise as well, which if I hit this big green button, you have to actually use a gun to hit it. If I try to hit it with my hand, nothing happens. But you've got 15 seconds to shoot as many pots as possible. It'll keep count up on the wall. Oh no, get that last one. Oh, I missed it. Yeah, so that's great to once you get the hang of actually aiming, you want to start picking up the pace a bit. You want to be able to snap onto a target and shoot it as quickly as possible. Get those reflexes going. But I would definitely start with taking it slow. Just get the hang of using the iron sights first, and then start to ramp it up with those exercises. So once you've done that for a bit, it's time to move from stationary targets to moving targets. Now this is probably the coolest one out of all of the exercises, and you got a bunch of different options you can play with. First one is target size. So you got 3 different sizes. You got large, medium, and small. I'll just start with large for now. And you've also got speed options. So you got, slow, faster, and really fast. It's really crazy once you combine it with smallest target size, fastest speed, but we'll just go the complete opposite for now. So this one, I like to use it, I start by trying to track targets. Just pick a target and follow it backwards and forwards. Try to stay aimed at the center of it. and try to keep your hands as steady as possible. You can go ahead and speed it up once you get a little bit more comfortable. It's going to make it a whole lot easier to follow players on maps and shoot them down, especially if you're using like a fully automatic weapon with a high rate of fire. You want as many bullets to hit them as possible, and working on your tracking is going to help with that a lot. Alright, switch back to this. Once you think you've gotten the hang of that, just start shooting, I guess. Again, it's best to keep this on single fire, as with the rest of the exercises, because you pretty much want to make every bullet count in this game. When you actually play a game, I generally prefer to keep it on auto, and I'll burst fire a few shots. Like that. But if you actually want to improve your accuracy, it really helps to just, you know, make every single bullet a hit. So that's one other thing that I want to mention, which is that when it comes to aiming and moving targets, like I mentioned earlier, that you want to sort of like keep your whole body moving, use your whole body to aim. What you can do though is you can also use your left hand to make minor adjustments. So one of the things that I often found myself doing when I started playing this game is that I would hold my gun up, and then if I wanted to like aim off to the side, I'd actually move my right hand, because, you know, I'm right-handed. I'm used to playing keyboard and mouse games where my right hand does all the aiming. However, you kind of want to switch that around for this. You want your left hand to do the aiming, as long as, you know, your left hand's the one at the front. If you're left-handed, you want it the other way around. You'll have your left hand on the back, right hand at the front. Right hand is what you'll use for aiming. Because if I try to move my right hand, as you can see, the iron sights, they get out of line pretty quickly. However, if I use my left hand, you can see that they stay in line a whole lot better. So that's something to get used to as well, which is aiming with your left hand. Keep your right hand as steady as possible, and aim with your left. So what I end up doing in matches is that I'll use like my whole body as like for my big movements, and then use the left hand for the smaller movements. Just like the other exercise, this one has also got its own big green button, which if I hit that, a timer will start, and I've got to shoot as many targets as possible. This one gives me 30 seconds instead of 15 though. There we go. 34 and 30 seconds. That's not too bad. Again, it was on the easiest options, but still. So yeah, you want to spend a lot of time practicing on this one as well. Change up the options, make it harder, and go for it. Like, I'm still finding this one pretty hard. Oh boy. I'm pretty decent at the lowest options. Once you make it like as small as possible and as fast as possible, it becomes pretty tricky. So that's what I'm trying to improve on the most right now. So once you do that lots, you'll start to build up some muscle memory of where your hands actually need to be to hit what you're looking at. And what you'll probably find is that you might be able to start hitting shots without looking down the iron sights at all. Still not as accurate as actually looking down the sights. But with enough practice, you'll be able to more reliably hit objects. And that's great for when you're actually playing and you've got to go for just those quick reflex shots. There we go. It's like you run around a corner, all of a sudden there's a player there that you weren't expecting to run into, and you gotta lift your gun up and just shoot. But you still want to, you know, try to prioritize looking down the sights. If you can build up that muscle memory, it's great. It really does help. But the way to get that is by practicing with looking down the sights. Okay, let's move on to the last exercise that I want to show off, which is called breaching practice. Now, this is one of those kinds of exercises where there's a bunch of these targets around in some buildings, and you want to take them out. The targets don't shoot back at you, but they're great for adding in some movement to your aiming as well. So this is the final thing you want to work on, which is how do you move around and stay accurate. Now, if you played lots of traditional FPSs, you'll probably pick up on this one pretty quickly, which is that you don't want to just aim with your hands, you also want to aim with your feet. So like, okay, so I want to shoot this guy here. I got two options. I can either move across and shoot him in the head, or I can just walk across. So, this often ends up becoming for me a mix of aiming with my hands and aiming with my feet. I try to keep my hands as steady and as like lined up with the camera as possible. Side to side movement, I try to use my feet a little bit more than my hands to aim with. So yeah, this exercise is filled with these moving targets, filled with the stationary targets. There's a bunch of pots around as well. And there's two watermelons. I don't know why there's watermelons, but you know, it's fun. There we go. So this one does take a little bit for, well, especially for these targets here to respawn. So I usually leave this to last, run through it a few times, and then that's when I hop into a game. So that's pretty much what I do to warm up before playing Pavlov. I'll just hop into this level, run through those 4 different exercises that I mentioned, and then work on the individual things I talked about, such as holding your hands steady, aiming down the iron sights, using your left hand to do your fine movements, using your feet to aim as well, especially in the breaching targets, and then, yeah, doing these other exercises where you gotta get as many as possible in the time limit. So there's definitely still a lot that I personally can learn, so like I mentioned, I'm working on this exercise still, hitting those fast moving little targets. I don't think any players in the game actually move this fast, but it's definitely good to know how to do it anyway. Once you feel as though you're getting pretty good with this, you may want to, just for the extra challenge, go ahead and turn that virtual stock off. So now you've got to do all the stabilization yourself. So it becomes a whole lot trickier. But if you want your skills to be transferable between different VR FPSs, it's probably a good idea to practice without the virtual stock on as well. Because, for example, Onward or Contractors, they don't have a virtual stock option. So their guns feel a lot more like, well, playing without the virtual stock. So it's worthwhile doing a little bit of practicing, but I would definitely say focus on using the virtual stock the most. But yeah, as I said earlier, link to this map is down in the description down below, so definitely give it a shot. It's a really good tool to use to get better at playing VR FPSs. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, leave a like. Let me know down below if there's any other tips and tricks that you feel are pretty good to know for Pavlov, or just let me know if I was flat out wrong about anything. I'm always keen to learn more about this game. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.